Fellow Toastmasters, tonight's speech may not be for the faint of heart, so please be warned. Now, as you may be aware, I have a fondness for words. But one of my other passions happens to be a bit of adventure, where I can find it. And I've tried to pass this on to my children. From a very young age, whenever we would see a spotlight in the sky, we'd chase it. Not so much to see where it was from, but just for the thrill of the chase. And over time, when they would ask, where are we going? They learned to become accustomed to that way. Or on occasion, that way. And it was a tremendous pleasure of mine to show them that just by simply chasing your nose, you'll oftentimes, if not find something amazing, find something tremendously interesting, if nothing else. And it is exactly that sort of endeavor that had brought me and my oldest son, Patrick, on what could be considered a unique jaunt into alternative cinema. Tonight, I'm going to tell you how we were zombies. It started out fairly simple enough. I got a request from a friend of mine asking what I happened to be doing one weekend on a late spring afternoon. As it sits, he was the sound engineer for a low-budget film called The Book of Zombie. And they had arranged to not only have the use of an entire building's worth of soon-to-be demolished buildings, up to and including a bar, but the permission to close down 3 full city blocks worth of streets in downtown Auburn to film the crowd scenes. So he asked me, you know who wants to be a zombie? Well, I was sold right out the gate. I mean, hey, see, sang in Ventura Hall, open for a country western band, zombie extra in low-budget movie. Oh yeah, we're all over that. Well, as my oldest son, Patrick, he was 16 about this time. I figured, well, I'll see if he wants to come along. I asked him. And while you can largely determine that the line between fantasy and reality is already very clear in my house, so I wasn't overly concerned about adverse effect, while he wasn't completely hooked, being a teenager with nothing better to do on a Saturday, he decided, yeah, sure, why not? So, the day of shooting came, and we were there spot on at 2 o'clock in our really don't care what happens to him clothes. And while we were the first to show up, in short order, a good 20 or 30 people had arrived. Now this was already a unique experience because everybody had to go through wardrobe and makeup. And because we were early, we got to go through pretty quick. So fairly quickly, my son was transformed into basically a face off a milk carton. And my poor hair was teased more than an undersized 6th grader. But this was film. We were ready. We were excited. We would nosh on service food, sit back and watch movies while other people were getting all dressed and made up. Every now and then wandering out to the smoking section to wave at passerbys and hang out with our zombie kin. And then eventually they came out with the buckets and with pouring and brushing and occasionally flecking. We rapidly transformed into one of the most unpleasant but remarkably friendly bunches of zombies you may ever hope to meet. And still we waited until dark, and that's when the work began. Now, I fear for any poor passerby who might have passed by that street late at night, only to find a remarkably odd, staggering unison of black and blue, bloodied bodies shambling down the street, legs dragging behind them. I'm actually going way too fast, just so you know. Only to snap up into normal upright physique, wander our way right on back, only to turn around, assume our positions, and do it again. And as 9 turned into 10, and 10 to 11, 11 to 12, the crowds began to thin a bit, but we were determined. We were in this all the way. Between takes, we talked to some of the other people. We ran across a nice local news personality. We ran across a guy and his daughter, much younger than mine, out enjoying this. And as the night's cool, crisp, in stark contrast to the summer sun had really started to settle in, the fake blood I was drenched in had assumed the consistency of hard candy, pulling hairs every time my shoulders moved. My poor son, holes torn in his shoes from dragging up and down the asphalt. But we stayed on. We pressed on, and when dawn's light started twinkling over the horizon, we were among the last to go. And as we drove home, it was laughter and smiles every step of the way. 167 turned into 405, turned into I-5, and the energy did not dim. And it was the energy you only get from doing something that no one else has done. And that night, that morning, as we'd started in the afternoon and ended at morning light, 7 a.m. rolled around, and it's an oddly contented feeling to be washing corn syrup and food coloring out of your hair, knowing that not only did you get to do something great, you got to share it with someone who mattered to you, and you got to be the person to give that first, number one, big, this is the crazy, stupid, zany stuff I've done on the list. And I am fairly content that when he does finally have a son, and they're riding in the car seat, when that child says, "Where are we going, Dad?" We're going everywhere. Master Toastmaster?